Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Ray Orsini, and this is a very special report of MSP Dispatch with some people we've had on the air before. We're going to be covering a new addition to the MSP landscape in terms of literature. We're always constantly learning, and there's the old adage RTFM. And so I'm very happy to have joining me someone who literally wrote the book to RTFM from. Please help me welcoming Miss Marnie Stockman. Hey, Marnie, how you doing?
Good, great. How are you?
Good, good. And it's not just you this time because you've
Oh.
been doing this dynamic duo thing with your books lately. And we have also Nick. Why don't you come up on stage?
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome.
All right. So
All
instead
right.
of me introducing and butchering this stuff, let's go the other way. Let's have you guys introduce each other, because that's always fun. Nick, why don't you tell us who this lovely lady is and give us some background on her?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, Ray, I think one of the things about our book is we start off with a rules section, right? And those are rules that we live by and drive our leadership philosophy by. But I have a rule, and one of my rules is if I'm ever on a call with Marnie Stockman, that we introduce each other, right? So, and reason is because Marnie's just does so much better of a job introducing me than I can. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I'll introduce Marnie. And in this community, there's really not much. Marnie doesn't really need much of an introduction. You know, she's kind of like Roy Kent. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere. But you might know her as a sought after speaker. She's an author of several books. She's an influencer on social. Many of you know her as the co-founder of Life Cycle Insights, former CEO. What you may not know is that Marnie in real life is really that same positive, uplifting, caring, and intelligent person she portrays in the community. In addition to her authenticity, I think Marnie's greatest superpower is a relentless vision to push both herself and others to kind of be the best version of themselves. So in that sense, she's really like a living, breathing example of Ted Lasso, minus the mustache, of course.
Thank goodness for that.
I love that. I'm going to start referring to Marnie as Roy from now on. Easily one of my favorite characters from the book, from the movie or TV show. Sorry, we'll get into.
Yep.
Marnie, I don't know how you're going to top that.
Yeah. Well, so first, one of the other rules in the book is that nice guys don't finish last. Nice guys and gals don't finish last. And Nick proves that every day, as is evidenced by his intro of me. So this is Nick Coniglio. He was also one of the co-founders, and he was managing partner of Life Cycle Insights. And he's really the one that made all the magic happen. We sometimes joke and say that I wrote the books and he wrote the code, but now he writes the books too. So really, I need to get on some certifications, and I have no chance of catching up. So we're just going to let him keep doing the magic. For Lasso fans out there, he is absolutely much more like Coach Beard. He is quieter. He is smart and insanely humble. And so he is also a superior diamond dog. He really is a magic partner. Although, unlike this and Ted, he's much more likely to beat me in darts than I could beat him. So that is Nick Coniglio.
Does that make you Ted then, Marnie?
Yeah, that is without the mustache, like you said.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, that works.
100%.
Although,
That works.
the family thinks that there's some Rebecca and Keely in me, depending on the moment.
I could see that. Yeah, I would say if I had to call you out, I'd probably say Rebecca. That's one of my favorite parts about the shows. You had these pods, and I actually just watched Ted Lasso for the first time. My wife and I watched it a couple weeks ago, so it's still fresh. But like that's one of the things I love, that it had very strong women, but it had these pods of like these dynamic leaders that you wouldn't have thought of individually, but as a team, they made each other stronger.
Yeah.
Where you had Rebecca that was very well put together. She was very entrenched in the rich and or the ultra rich lifestyle, so she knew the players. She was well
That's
respected.
not me, for the record, at all. But yeah.
I don't know. I think I disagree there. But she's very comfortable in that space. And then you had Keely, who was coming up looking for that mentor, but she was strong in her own right. And that talks about a little bit like what this is, right? We're talking about the MSP world. We grow because of those around us, and we're better together, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we wrote the book. So Nick watched Ted Lasso first, and then he convinced me that I should watch Ted Lasso. He's like, "No, seriously, you have to watch Ted Lasso." And so we would relive and talk through all of the pieces and parts, and of course, loved it. I mean, absolutely raving fan. But we realized along the way that we didn't just love the show and all the leadership principles, but we believed a lot of what it did paralleled a lot of what we did in Life Cycle Insights and what I've read in leadership books, right? So the whole notion of really running a company or a team or your family room with your core values and culture and driving to vision and purpose, and then have fun while you're doing it is what we aim to do in a company. And it definitely was what Ted Lasso did. So that's kind of what drew us to write the book, is we loved every bit of it.
And I think part of that, we often, people ask us what was so surprising about the success with Life Cycle Insights. And I think what we feel like, you may have heard this before we've said this, what we feel like the most surprising thing is that it really wasn't that surprising. And I recognize Marnie said I was humble earlier, and that doesn't sound very humble, but we really follow the steps that were outlined in this book. And that's part of the reason why we're so excited that we were able to kind of get the brain space and the time to document all these things, because we feel like there's a lot of valuable lessons in leadership and how to run a company outlined in this book.
So one of the things I love about this is I go to Amazon. I'm asking Marnie for the books she's written, and I realize I can just go to Amazon and search Marnie Stockman, which is nice. So here's the full library at this moment. Give Marnie 30 seconds; she'll write another book. But starting off with literally the book on customer success for MSPs, moving on to the MSP Owner's Handbook, Sassy Edition, and of course the OG MSP Owner's Handbook with Juan Fernandez, and now we're at Lead It Like Lasso. So the other one's very clear, right? MSPs, customer success, Sassy Edition, because SaaS is just a little bit different than MSP. Who's reading this book? Who's reading Lead It Like Lasso?
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious one is business owners, but the less obvious one is that everyone is a leader. So really everyone. So one of the key pieces that we really aim to look at in the book was providing leadership tips for everyone. The subtitle is A Leadership Book for Life, Your Life.
And as we wrote it, we solicited a lot of feedback, and we had a lot of folks provide that feedback. And I think their comments kind of really inspired us in a couple of different ways. We had parents, right, say how much they felt this book would really help their nearly adult children, those they're about to launch, find their way in the world. We had another person say, she works for a nonprofit, that every CEO should read this book, right? So we had kind of a pretty big dichotomy. Her focus was especially on nonprofit organizations, but it was interesting that we had both of those different takes.
We had I'm going to interrupt. Yeah, we had a professional ice hockey coach who does team building that we connected on LinkedIn, and he said he sees his own alignment with his team building practices. We had a CEO in the MSP community, a vendor, who said that she was going to take one of the activities around communication that we had put in the book, and they were going to do that with the whole team. So I like sort of the diversity of who the book is for.
And of course, anybody who loved Ted Lasso, right? It's just a no-brainer, right? It's an absolute no-brainer, because, the book isn't just about rehashing Ted Lasso stories. Obviously, I think hopefully we'll talk about this a little bit. We dig deep into leadership principles, but just the callbacks to the show are a lot of fun.
So let me ask you, Nick, do you have to watch Ted Lasso? And everybody should. It's easily one of my favorite shows, but do you have to watch Ted Lasso before reading the book?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, to your point, right, on social, there are a ton of communities out there who just extol the virtues of the show. So like you, I think we agree you're missing out if you haven't seen the show. But that said, two things, right? The first is there are spoilers, right? I mentioned earlier, we have so many callbacks from the show. So if you're planning on watching it, our suggestion is watch the show. If you plan on reading the book, our suggestion is to watch the show first. But really, you don't have to. The lessons and the activities, I think they can be done by anyone, Ray. They just might be really confused when we end phrases with things like barbecue sauce and whistle and things like that. But
And it's on
the
Apple
answer is
TV
no.
for those that don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, and actually one of my written and directed by Bill Lawrence, same guy as Scrubs, and many other books and many other shows. One of my favorites. Marnie, there's a lot of leadership books out there.
Yeah.
Heck, there's a lot of Marnie Stockman books out there. um, what makes this different? What makes it? Obviously, you have a tie-in with a well-loved TV show that had lots of lessons. But at its core, it's a leadership book. Why is this different? Why should we pick it up?
Can I say I love a good leadership book? It smells like potential. Just to one more callback.
That needs to be on a shirt.
So obviously I do love leadership books, right? I do bits and books with MSP Media Network. But we wrote this one that is different in tone. Again, it's not a leadership book just for business owners. So I think that's different right away. But all of our guinea pigs who kind of beta read it have said, like, that doesn't sound like a traditional, this is just going to be a business book. I took a copy to my friend yesterday, we went out to lunch, and I said, I'd really love for you just to read the foreword, which does involve some Roy Kent imaginary cussing, and the first page of the prologue, just to get a sense of what it's like. And I thought she was being polite because she was still reading. I said, just stop. I just wanted you to get a sense of it. It's like, she's like, but I don't want to stop, right? This is really, it just pulls you in because you feel like the same way she was feeling when she watched the show. So I think that's a big piece of it. To Nick's point, this is not an expanded version of the top 10 leadership rules that are Ted Lasso that you can see on, blog posts everywhere. It is really tying it to what folks can do in their lives. We do tie it to a ton of the leadership books that we have read. We tied it to our story at Lifecycle Insights and things that people can do actionable every day. We even have a character assessment that'll let you see where your leadership traits are, which is how I know I'm a Ted with a little Rebecca and some Keely on the side.
Okay. It wouldn't be a Marnie Stockman book without a little bit of homework.
100%. Yes. Correct.
So, I'm going to ask you, I kind of teased a little bit already, but I was going to ask, when does it launch? When can we get the book? I see it's available on Amazon already. Yes, I may have purchased this already. Marnie, Nick, you guys are going to be at IT Nation Connect next week?
We are. So like you said, we've kind of done a soft launch. We're available on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Books A Million. So we're out there for a sneak peek. Anybody in your listening audience? The official launch date is going to be November 10th at IT Nation. So we're
very nice,
excited.
Very nice. And I imagine there will be some book signings as per usual.
Oh, we're available. It'll be easy to find. I do have a couple sessions at IT Nation, so for sure, would love to see folks there.
Yeah, and I should mention also, Marnie is the host of Bits and Books here on MSP Media Network. Monthly, we get together, talk about a book. It's an open thing. It's not like a webinar format where it's just a single host. Actually, if you want to be part of it, just join. And we talk about it on Discord all month long between episodes. Our next episode, I think, is
December 1st.
Next month. There you go.
They ask you
and what's the book we're talking about on that one?
They ask you answer. Marcus Sheridan.
Love that one.
If you want to grow a business, that is the way to do it.
Absolutely. That's something we live by here. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you have a little fun here because Ted Lasso is fun and you guys are fun. And so we're going to have a little fun here. I'm going to go through a lightning round of questions and just the first answer that comes to mind.
All right, quick. All right, got it.
Yeah. Nick, since this was your recommendation, we'll start with you first. Okay. What was your favorite part of Ted Lasso?
All the press conferences. Favorite is the last Roy Kent press conference, but I think the vulnerability that they bring into the conference and they turn it around gives me the chills every time I think about each one of them.
Yeah, are you familiar with the story of how that character came to be? It's
Which,
Roy Kent was a writer on the show, and he
yeah,
filled in a spot for something, some scene, and it worked so well. It just ended up writing his gruff. He's basically Oscar the Grouch.
yeah,
They wrote him into the show, and I loved it.
yeah,
He's one of my favorite characters easily. I definitely
100%.
resonate with Roy a good bit. Um,
Yeah.
Marnie, what is your favorite character?
Um, the easy one is Roy Kent, but I'll say Trent Krim.
I love Trent. He reminds me, like, even before they got into the whole thing, I was telling Michelle, he reminds me of Ratatouille, the food critic, with his perfect hair, and it's just I loved watching him. I'll ask both of you this. We'll start with Nick. Best line in Ted Lasso.
Oh my God, there are so many. I'll pick one. I mean, you can pick a million, but at one point, Ted was talking to Nate, and Nate was mumbling something, and he said, "Sorry, Nate, I have a real tricky time hearing folks that don't believe in themselves." And that just speaks to me, right? That's kind of where I was 20, 25 years ago when I got started out. So I love that one.
What about you, Marnie?
So I just love the scene so much. Like, Keely Jones, independent woman. Keely Jones, independent woman online edition. Keely Jones, independent woman weekend edition.
I love that. Mine would be, you could fill 2 internets with what I don't know about football.
Yeah.
And I love that because sometimes when we're in a leadership position, it doesn't mean we know what we're doing. It means we're good at figuring out what to do. Almost often with the people around us, finding the right people to help us. Ted had
100.
Coach Beard, that he's a savant in every sense of the word. And he had his kit guy turned coach. So definitely great show.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Marnie, last question. I feel like this was written for you. What is your favorite leadership book?
The pile is high. Like, it's actually a multiple pile, so it doesn't fall over on me again. So I'm going to have to go with Good to Great, only because it is the first leadership book that I ever read that then inspired me to want to read more of them. And to be fair, like, my doctorate's in leadership, so I feel like to have one that kind of kicked me off to go do all the things is saying something.
Very nice. What about you, Nick?
I would go with Think Again by Adam Grant. Just the whole notion of, questioning introducing biases and assumptions into the decision-making process and rethinking how you approach that has always been kind of the anchor of the way I approach things. And I'm a big fan.
Awesome. Well, Nick, Marnie, thank you so much for being on here. We are going to link where to get the book from Amazon in the show notes. We'll link also the other 2 books that Marnie and Nick mentioned, as well as a nice little link that I stole from of best Ted Lasso quotes. So
they're all fantastic. Yeah.
They're all fantastic. But thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah.
Since nobody knows when this is recorded, I'm not doxing you, so happy birthday, Marnie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But looking forward to seeing you guys both next week, and can't wait to start reading it this weekend. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to hear what you think. Yeah, thank you.
Have an awesome weekend. Until next
Appreciate
time,
you,
everybody,
Ray.
take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
All right. Thanks.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.